Hello. Thank you everyone for coming to the Home Health and Happiness Show. It's great to be here. Great to see so many people learning a little bit about home health and happiness and all it has to offer. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about diastasis. It's a topic that a lot of people don't know a lot about, and primarily it affects women who have had babies, but can affect other people as well. So let's get right into it, and we're going to talk about diastasis. My name's Kevin, and this is Michele. Woo! So what is diastasis? If you actually look at what it translates to, diastasis means a separation. And specifically today we're talking about Diastasis Recti, which is the rectus abdominal muscles, which is this set of muscles running down here that's most closely associated with a six-pack or an eight-pack or a four-pack, depending on what you can see. So that's what recti means. So Diastasis Recti is actually when the abdominal muscles separate, and that's usually caused to a lot of intra-abdominal pressure, which can happen when you are pregnant. It can happen when you do a lot of heavy lifting, and you can actually be born with it as well. And if you're obese, it actually is more likely that it's going to happen to you as well. So who can get a diastasis? So like I said, it's most commonly found in postpartum women. About 66% of women while going through their pregnancy will experience a diastasis, but only 36% of them will still remain having it when they are done with their pregnancy 7 weeks afterwards. So what that means is even though you're done your pregnancy, your abdominal muscles don't always return to the way that they're supposed to be. They don't tighten up, and you no longer have that ability to create tension in the connective tissue between your abdominals. So this can create a lot of problems, including things like incontinence, or there's quite a few things, prolapse, and other things that can happen when you have a diastasis. And most people will not realize they have a diastasis, and there's not really a lot of people who know how to test for it. But luckily, we do know how to test for it. There's a non-invasive test that can be done, and it's just to check if you have a diastasis. And we're going to talk a little bit about what can happen if you do have a diastasis. So Michele, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Well, there are common symptoms and complications that do come from diastasis. The number one thing is incontinence. And for those of you who don't know what incontinence is, it is uncontrolled urination, particularly during exercises. So if you're doing like jump squats, like Kevin was saying, heavy lifting, and there's a little bit of leaking, that is a symptom of diastasis because the organs are not being secured in place. Closer. Another common symptom of diastasis is the mummy pooch or the mummy tummy. So usually when it's like the dimpled skin, it's a little bit of a protrusion, and you often always hear mommy say, I have this mummy tummy, I can't get rid of it, it's from having my kids. That is actually a symptom of diastasis. Again, it's because the linea alba, that thin piece of tissue connecting the abs, is worn to the point where it cannot support the organs inside. And because it doesn't have that support, it can also cause the organs to descend. And this causes a condition called a prolapse. And it is not a pretty condition, it is not a comfortable condition. It is actually when the organs descend so far that they vacate the body either vaginally and in some cases rectally as well. And it doesn't just happen to women, it also happens to men. Men can have this happen rectally, but also they can have it come in the form of a hernia in their iliotibial band. Oh, sorry, that's wrong. Iliopsoas, not iliotibial. Iliotibial is here, iliopsoas is here. All right. Yep, perfect.
So what are some things you should be avoiding if you have a diastasis? First thing, any sort of heavy lifting or things that are going to cause a lot of intra-abdominal pressure. So if you have to lift any heavy boxes right after having a pregnancy, that can actually make a diastasis quite a bit worse. And you don't want to be doing any like crunches, push-ups, sit-ups. There's a lot of exercises to avoid if you have this condition, because if you do too many of these things, the separation is actually going to create more separation, and eventually it could tear and create a hernia as well. So if you've had a baby in the last little while, or even at any age if you've had a baby before and you suspect you might have a diastasis, there's a lot of things you don't want to be doing. So things to watch out for: very high intensity exercises, marathons, boot camps, things like that are really good to avoid.
Well, you want to avoid them at least until your rehab is done, right? Because we do love doing all those things. I know myself, I love doing the boot camps, I love running, I love the lifting. But again, until those abs are rehabbed and functioning properly, you might want to hold off until you get the go-ahead. All right, so how can you fix a diastasis? The first thing you want to do is consult a professional. So a pelvic floor physiotherapist. Pelvic floor physios specialize in your pelvic floor, exactly as it sounds, and how to rehab it. So they will do an internal assessment just to see how well it's functioning. You can also consult a Belly Zinc certified personal trainer like myself, and we do a non-invasive assessment. We just check the abdomen, and we do a couple of tests just to see, if there is spacing, if you have good tension in your core, and then from there we decipher if we can proceed with our own rehab program or if we need to send you again to the pelvic floor physio. The next step is base training. Once you get the go-ahead to either start your rehab program or again to go into training, you want to learn how to rehabilitate your core through breathing. The proper breathing technique is much different than what we think. When we naturally breathe, we tend to raise the chest. When we want to improve our core, that's not the way we want to go about it, because our core is comprised of 4 different parts: the multifidus, the diaphragm, the transversus, and the pelvic floor. We want to breathe into our rib cage to lift the diaphragm and lift everything up and secure it in place. Once we get that breathing done by breathing into the rib cage, lifting the diaphragm, we'll then perform a Kegel exercise to tighten that pelvic floor. Then we release. You take this breath and you put it in conjunction with other exercises, like a squat, like a lunge. If you are given the clearance to jog or run while you're running and jogging. And like Kevin said, you want to avoid physical activities that engage too much outward abdominal pressure, like the crunches, yes, absolutely. Even leg raises too, you want to avoid those until you get the clearance. Alrighty, so the core strengthening exercise that I'm going to show you today, they're very simple, very straightforward, but again, you use them in conjunction with that breathing. So, and this is effective for everyone, not just if you're rehabbing. You can do this to flatten out those abs and get a nice six-pack. So the first thing we're going to learn is the hip raise. A lot of the time, you'll see a hip raise. People will show off their flexibility. And it will be something like this. That's wrong. This puts way too much pressure on the abdomen. Yes, it looks impressive and it looks really bendy, but it's not good for my abs. When you're doing the hip raise, you want to make sure you inhale first into the rib cage. Exhale, squeeze the glute med, which is right here, and keep the spine nice and neutral. You want to make sure the tummy is flat, not protruding. No good. Good. So again, inhale into the rib cage. Exhale, raise the hips up by using the glute med. Again, that's the glutes right here. And flattening out the abs. The next one that you can do is called the clam. So you'll lie on your side. You want to keep your body nice and neutral. And again, you take the same breathing technique. Inhale into the rib cage, exhale, and then you open up your knees for a clam. A common mistake in here is opening up too wide. Again, it's great if you're flexible, it's great if you have mobility. That's not the point. That's not going to strengthen your pelvic floor. You have to inhale to the rib cage, exhale, just open enough to your nice neutral angle, and then bring it back down. So those are a couple of exercises you can do to strengthen your pelvic floor. It's very simple but very effective. Some people do them, they go, oh, I'm not feeling that burn, I'm not feeling the abs work. Give it time. It's going to help to rebuild. You have to rebuild before you go hardcore. The next thing is you will notice, particularly with women who are pregnant and also with those who are obese, they tend to develop a pelvic tuck, okay, because they're carrying all the way forward. What happens here is muscles like the piriformis, again, it's in the glutes, that pain in the glute, it causes a shift forward. This leaves less room or too much room for less room for your organs to properly sit. If you have a diastasis, the linea alba creates too much space. The abs aren't secure. So if you're standing like this, and if there's not enough room for your organs to sit, where are they going? They're going forward. That's right. They're going forward. And they're pushing through that linea alba and making it worse. So we need to correct this posture. We need to bring the hips back, shoulders back. One way to do that is by releasing the piriformis. You can do this by getting yourself a tennis ball, or some acupressure balls. What you would do with this is you would simply sit on the ground, locate your piriformis, which is approximately where your jean pocket is. You have a seat, and then you literally just sit on the ball. It doesn't feel nice, I'm not going to lie to you. It feels like a deep tissue massage, but it's necessary. If it is feeling that tender, it means it needs to be done, okay? Once you sit on the ball, you then roll back and forth, okay? So releasing the piriformis is imperative to correcting the posture, which is a huge part in redeveloping your core. And lastly, my last tip to fix the diastasis is to be proactive, okay? If you're planning on getting pregnant, if you are pregnant, or if you're post-pregnancy, this is mainly for pregnant women now, consult a pelvic floor physio first and get ahead of the game, okay? We want to be preventative so we don't have to deal with all of this mess, okay? Once you see your pelvic floor physio, they are going to put you in the direction of a trainer to help keep you on track to make sure that you are practicing what you need to avoid getting a diastasis.
So the reason why this presentation is called How to Correct the Diastasis at Any Age is because no matter how far post-pregnancy you are, you're still post-pregnancy, and it is an issue that can continue to move on forward in life. It's not something that corrects itself for most people, and it is something that needs a little bit of rehab for about 33% of women who have babies. So it's important to be proactive and really look into the steps, which is why we're going to be giving away a complimentary assessment with Michele. She will come to your home and just check if you have a diastasis, and then if you do have one, she'll give you the necessary steps to correct it. So come visit us at booth number 11, just in the far corner, and thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Did anybody have any questions?